Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Now that was really dumb. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something cool. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna make another woodworking project because it's cold. It's back to kind of cold, but not cold outside, and it's real windy and it's been raining and everything's just wet. Today we're gonna do a project. I've started on this a couple weeks ago. I filmed an intro for it. It was really weird, and then I put it off to the side, and I've been occasionally coming out and doing stuff on it, prepping it essentially. But what we're gonna make is a clock. So essentially, I've built a couple boxes so far using dovetail joints. I'm pretty confident with my ability to make that joint now. Am I perfect with it? No, but I can make it now, right? I feel more confident, and as I build more things with it in the future, I'll get better. So this project has a couple different types of joints in it. It has kind of like a groove and panel type joint where you're gonna cut like a recessed groove in the sides to slide a panel in, kind of like what you would do with like a door, a cabinet door or something. And then there's some like dado joints in it where we're gonna kind of put two pieces together and lock them together with some glue. We're doing all this by hand, right? We're not using power tools or anything, so it's how do we cut that stuff. I've also got a couple new tools that we're gonna use throughout this that I bought to make the grooves, and maybe some cool little, I bought like this cool little molding plane that will give us some kind of decorative aspects of it as well. So it's not gonna be a real huge clock. It's gonna be about 14 inches tall, roughly 10 inches wide. I bought a clock face that we can put recessed in it, but we're basically gonna build the body out of wood. So we're not building this out of anything exotic. We're just building it out of pine. That way, if I totally mess it up, it's not, you know, breaking the bank or anything, and we're not ruining a good piece of wood. So essentially what I did is I went to Home Depot, went down there finished wood aisle. So this isn't like the rough construction lumber, it's more like their hardboard section, where they've got just some 6 square pine boards that you can buy. They're a little more pricey than like construction lumber, but they tend to be a little bit nicer. They have less knots in them, sometimes no knots if you dig through and you find some clear pieces like this. So I just basically got a couple different size boards and cut them down into stock like this. So basically, I ripped a couple pieces to make these smaller little styles. I've got these sides here, these two pieces for the sides. I've got these two for the top and bottom, and then the bottom piece down there is gonna be our centered panel. If this turns out good, I might build one later in some nicer wood, but I figure for learning things, pine's the way to go, right? So to get started, the rough kind of pieces we have, we've got the top and bottom, if you want to know sizing, if you want to build this, is about 4 inches wide, or exactly 4 inches wide, I should say, and we're about 10 3/8 inches long for this kind of top and bottom. The sides here, I believe, are 3.5 inches wide. Yep, 3.5, and we are about 14 3/8 inches long. These top and bottom styles are 2 3/8 inches thick by, let's see, 7 7/8 inches long. And then this panel kind of rough cut for the center is 7 1/4 by about 10 3/4 inches long. So I've chosen this piece to be my bottom, the bottom of the clock. I've come in 1 inch from each side and left a mark, and I'm going to take these long side pieces and kind of dado them in 1 inch from the side. If you notice, these aren't the same length, right? This is 4 inches, these are 3.5, I think. So we got a 1/2 inch reveal on the front. This is how we're going to start building kind of different depths and stuff with it. So I don't want to cut a dado all the way through. I only want to cut it the length of this board. But I'm worried that if I cut the sides down, right? I mark the sides and I trim in our dado. This front might show a gap, and that's going to be more important because we're going to have a panel here. So if there's little gaps in here, it's not that big of a deal. The side, yeah, if we show a gap on this side, that might not be the best. We're going to try to cut that the best we can. But I think what I want to do is cut a little notch out of here, the depth of what we want to go in the wood. And that way, when we cut the dado, so for instance, if this is 3.5, we're going to cut the dado about 3.25, and we'll come a 1/4 inch overlap on top. So that way it sits nice and flush, is the idea. Perfect. So we've got our front here, we've got our bottom there. We're going to come in here. So we want this to be 1 inch away, and we're 3 inches long, right? Yep. So we need a dado to be 3 inches long. So let's do that. So I'm just going to line up my board against my first line that I did, come over to the other side and put a mark, and that gives us the perfect thickness of the board, because they could vary a little bit. And we'll real gently make our mark down the side. All right, so this is going to be our dado that we cut, that this is going to sit into. That should sit in there nice and flush and hide any crimes that we have. And by doing this little reveal, this can be a little bit off depth-wise, so we can have a little bit of wiggle room for some seasonal movement, whatever. It'll sit in there, and this will cover up any gap that way. So now we just need to set our depth in here, which we're going to go down 3/8 of an inch deep. We can do that by using our board as well. So that's the depth that we want to go. So we're going to line up our board to the marks. Just give it a little mark there. And come in here. We're going to have this, we're going to cut out down to that deep. So cut out that. Hopefully you guys can see that and it's not glaring, but that's essentially what we're going to cut out. I've got a 1 inch chisel here. I'm just going to come to the very edge here. Just kind of wiggle in. I've gone around, I've cut this pretty deep, and then I came through with the tenant saw and kind of used this as a knife wall and cut down to our depth. So we're 3/8 of an inch down on each side, and I've just been going through, kind of coming through with a 1-inch chisel, 3/4 inch chisel, whatever you've got, and just kind of paring down from the middle down, making this big kind of mountain in the middle, trying to get down to depth on both sides. So I still have a little bit more ways to go, but I just wanted to kind of prove out, you didn't really even need the saw. You could have done just kind of hammering on both sides, you know, kind of chopping on both sides with the chisel and then coming back through and doing this pare down. I'm going to try a couple different techniques. So I'm going to try this one, and then the next one I'm going to try a router plane on, and just different types of ways to cut this. I can already tell though, we must have screwed up somewhere in the beginning, because if I put this board up to it right here, the way it's going to sit, and we're flush on this side, we're flush to the back, we're perfect up here, but on this side there's a maybe 32nd of an inch gap there. So at some point this wall moved somewhere. I'm not sure where, but fortunately it's going to be on the inside, so we can kind of hide our crimes. You won't see it. It just won't be the tight fit that I wanted, which kind of sucks, but you know, we've got glue, so it'll work. If you get to the point where this hill's kind of in your way, you can kind of come in here with a chisel, pop up at an angle like that, and then you can kind of come in here and push through some of this. And that'll kind of get rid of a big bunch of the bulk. Quickly. So we're about halfway down right now. We want to keep going. I'll come back when we get this cut, and we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so we've got our first kind of mortise or dado, whatever you want to call it, cut. We are sitting pretty flush. We're square, so that's good. We've got no visible gap here, so that's good. On the side here, we've got just a hairline of a gap there, and on this side in here, we're pretty tight up here, but then we are a little gappy in the back. So I'm not sure what I did. We didn't cut something straight there, but you know, we're learning. So I think for my first kind of dado cut, I'm pretty happy with that. The showpiece that's going to be showing is sitting flush to the front, and this outer side gap that's going to be showing is small enough that I think with glue that's going to swell up pretty much, and you know, we can shove a little sawdust in there if we have to, and it should disappear. So for the first one, I'm pretty happy with that. So now we have 3 more to cut. We've got to cut one on this side with the other panel, and then the 2 matching ones on the top. Am I going to show you the rest? Yeah, so let me cut this other one. I'll get it cut, and then I'll show you how we can use the router plane to kind of get down to our depth. Okay, so we're on the second one right now. I've got it cut down to just about the depth of where we need to go. This one's fitting a lot better. It's actually fitting pretty tight. So we are in really good shape here on this one. I'm learning as I go here. So what I did different on this one was, I should have filmed it. I'll film it on the next one. But essentially I cut this first outside line, scribed it, cut down, like did the little triangle side on one side. So did that saw relief cut, then placed the piece of wood up to that line, came in and scribed the other line. And now because of that, we have exact thickness and it's very tightly fitting. So that's perfect. That's the kind of fit we're looking for, is that nice press fit. So we are almost down to depth in here. And I want to show you guys this tool. This is a router plane. So this is essentially the same as like an electric router. It's basically got a little blade at the bottom that you can adjust with this screw here. And I've got it set you can, with this little wing nut on the back here, you can kind of lock that height in. So I've got it set down to the depth of our board. So essentially what I do is I put the plane up to it, and I make sure that I come in here and real gently where this first is coming in, and just kind of take the edge of the blade here and just kind of score along to make sure that I'm not taking too much off. You don't want to take a ton of wood off. This is just kind of like you're almost down to depth and you want to get to that final depth. So I can come in here now and kind of use these knobs and turn one side, holding pressure down on one side here. So on the one side, I'm holding pressure down. The other side, I'm kind of rotating, and I'm slowly paring away, just kind of chisel cutting away that wood to get us down to depth. Cool. So now we can come in here with like a 1/2 inch chisel, kind of clear out some of that waste. And on the side here, I'm just gonna kind of pop that down. We're cutting across that grain. Get in there, clear out some of this fuzzy bits. I'll blow it all out. Do a little bit. Just clean up that edge there a little bit. Now I'm going to go back through and just make sure that I'm down to depth everywhere. Perfect. And we got a perfect fit. That, I could not ask for anything better. We're nice and flush across the bottom. We're sitting flat. We've got nice tight fits on the side. I like it. Cool. One more to go. Well, I messed up. So I'm chopping the last mortise, but literally the last one. I'm on here. Here's the top. That one's done. And I'm go to chop this one, and you see what I did? Right here. Piece goes like this. Yep. So I cut my knife wall on the wrong side of the cut line, which means I'm screwed. So I cut that on the wrong side. It is deep enough that I can't plane it out. I'm just going to recut the top. I've got plenty of wood left, so I'm going to recut the top piece, replane it, re-chop this out, which sucks because this was like my best fitting mortise so far. It fits perfectly. There were no gaps anywhere. It was just the perfect like press fit. So, oh well, lessons learned. Had music on and I was just chilling away and working and didn't think. So now I get to do this all over again. Yay! we've got all of our dado slots, mortises, whatever you want to call them, cut. Everything is held together just by tension and pressure. There's no glue, everything's real loose right now. So this is kind of gonna be the outside rough shape of the clock. So next I want to put on these two small pieces here. So my plan is to put them in the front. So this front piece is offset by a 1/2 inch. I want to offset this in these side rails an extra 1/2 inch back to give it a little bit more depth. And in order to do that, I could just cut this to width and fit that in there, right? And just glue it on. But what I want to do is do kind of like almost like a tongue and groove type thing. So I'm gonna put a slot in the sides here, and then I'm going to slide that piece in and lock it in the slides. That way, in 20 years or whatever, when the glue fails, you still have some kind of mechanical joint that holds this together. I'm like talking in a box here. So you'll still have that mechanical joint to hold these pieces on. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is figure out where I'm gonna put my groove in these two side pieces. In order to do that, the first thing I went to was I have like this plow plane or rabbit plane, whatever you want to call it, and it comes with like this fence you could put on the side. So there's like rods, and you can adjust this fence, and that's how you set kind of the depth of the cut. The problem is all I have is one blade for this, and it's probably 1.25 inches wide. I don't have other blades, and I tried to look for other blades for this brand and I couldn't find them. So what I did was I searched Amazon and I came up with this. So this was super cheap. I think I bought it for like $20. It's all made out of rosewood. It's kind of an old school style plow plane or rabbit plane, whatever you want to call it. It still has an adjustable fence, just like the other one does, you know, so you can adjust. So it still has an adjustable fence on the side here, so you can still adjust where you want that cut to be. But the blade itself, if you can see down in here, is maybe 1/4 inch wide. Oh, I just cut myself. That's nice. So the blade is 1/4 inch wide, so that's what we're going to use to cut our groove. So let's get this set up, figure out where the center of these boards are, or I guess the side boards are. We'll figure out the center and we'll plow our groove into those pieces. So I sharpened that plow blade when I was testing it, or when I first got it. Sharpened it pretty good, and while I was pulling that fence out to show you guys, I nicked my finger on the blade. So I just gotta bear with me while I glue myself back together here. Homemade in the field surgery kit. I could just tell I wasn't gonna stop bleeding, and I don't want to bleed all over my work, so I need to glue that up real quick. Sorry if that made you queasy. Super glue, man. Works good. All right, let's get this groove cut. Okay, I think I have this pretty much set up. So if you see here, I've got 2 marks right here. So this is where I want the edge of my board to be, and this is where the start of the tongue will meet. So on this board, I've marked out where the tongue is gonna be. If I line that up, so the tongue will be there, line it up with where the start of the groove is. It's not quite a 1/2 inch, it's more 3/8 of an inch reveal from the edge of this board. So this is our side piece. I like that a little bit better than 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch looked too big to me. So I'm gonna cut the groove now in here, and then I'll cut the tongue to rest inside. I clamped a board to the end of my bench just to get the room I need to get this the plow plane in. So that way I can cut all the way through and get to the end without being a problem. You can see the blade is just touching that mark. So we're perfect where we need to be as far as depth away from the side. Now, if you'll notice, I'll push this along, it's not cutting anything. So we need to adjust the depth of our blade. And to do that, we just use a metal hammer and just gently tap on this, and that will advance the blade a little bit. And that's how we set our depth. If you go too far, you tap on the back of the plane, and that by hitting it in the back of the plane with a metal hammer, it pulls this blade back just by the force of inertia. So to cut this groove, you don't start at the back like you do a traditional hand plane. You start closer to the front. So we're going to start towards the front, work our way back until we can get a consistent groove cut, and then we'll get down to depth. I don't think I'm going to be able to go too far because eventually I'll hit the bench, but I think that's a good depth stop for me because I don't want to go that deep anyway. So I think that'll work. So we'll line up to our edge, and there's no holding back now. We've got to get it cut. Everything's tight. Let's do it. And we're riding on the top of the bench now, except right here. So you can tell we're hitting the bench down here because it's just basically riding on top of the bench. It's not cutting any deeper. Okay. Let's see. What do we think? Not bad. Got a little bit of tear out here, but I think that'll be okay. That's going to get covered by our bottom piece anyway. The center is looking good. Yeah. I like it. I think that's... we're not very deep here. All right, so we've got our box together and our groove is now cut inside of here on both sides. So now we need to take this piece and cut our tongue inside of it to go inside of there. So that way these will slide inside. After that, we still need to cut a groove inside this to fit our panel in. So let's get our tongues cut first and then we'll cut the groove. So I've got my groove cut, or my tongue cut, I should say. And I'm just now like offering it to that groove and just paring it down. I want it to fit firmly in the groove. I don't want any wobble, but I also don't want it super tight where it's gonna kind of blow the front end of that groove out, because that's fairly fragile. So I cut one side a little bit proud on this tongue, and now I'm just kind of paring it away with the chisel, and then I come over here and kind of offer it to the groove and see if it'll fit. So it's fitting in there right now, but it's just a little bit, just a little bit too tight. Okay, so we've got the first top kind of cross piece in. I like that reveal. That looks really good. It fits in there. That's just held in there by its own weight. So it's fitting in there just by static. It's fitting perfect. We just got to cut one for the bottom now, and then we can move on to cutting the groove in it to put our panel in. We've got both of our short pieces there kind of cut. Now I've got the plow plane back out to put our groove in this piece so that we can put our center panel. I've already kind of lined everything up on here, and I made sure that the blade here is lined up perfectly with the tongue. And I marked which side our groove sits on. So now it's just a matter of plowing the groove in this piece. That way we'll have a groove all the way around the box for our panel to sit in. Let's put it all back together, make sure everything lines up. Ouch. All right, so there we have it. We've got our box cut completely, or I should say our groove. So our groove is lined up all the way around. Looks good. So you can see we've got the groove going all the way around now for our panel is going to sit in here now. And that's what's going to hold the clock face. So this is the piece that I cut to fit in here. The problem I'm seeing is right now it's too tall, right? So we'll cut it down to length and we can get it to fit in this groove. And how I'm going to do that is by putting like basically a giant chamfer, making like a raised panel type of a panel in here. So it would basically be a giant chamfer going all the way around this 3/4 inch piece that we have to get down to 1/4 inch on the edges so that it will fit in there. You could go in there real sharp and just put them in there and they would fit, but I want to do kind of a nice scalloped look all the way around. So I'm probably going to plane this down. The issue that I see is I wanted to fit this out of one piece of wood without having to put a glue seam down the middle, and I like the way the grain looks on this pattern. The issue is that the board is just wide enough to fit from here to here. I probably should have brought it in more, but I didn't like the way it looked. So I think this will be okay, but I just have to make sure that I don't go too narrow when I plane these down, that it's basically a tension tight fit in these grooves, so it doesn't really move too much. So I'll just have to be cautious with that. Worst case, if I mess it up, I'll have to basically take 2 pieces of this, glue it together, and make a seam down the middle essentially, and then panel it, and then it'll be wide enough. But I'm going to try to do it out of this. That's my plan. So the first thing I need to do is cut it down to length, and which would be the distance from here to here plus 1/2 inch, because our grooves are 1/4 inch deep on both sides. So that'll at least give us our length that we have to work with, and then we can start planing everything down to 1/4 inch all the way around. Before I do that though, I need to get my clock face on here. I'm not going to show you that yet because I feel like that's kind of the big reveal at the end, but I want to see, I don't want my clock face to be beyond the chamfer, right? So I want to put my clock face on here, and that way I know where my lines are going to be, that I can plane up to. So after some planing, here's the side. So I did the end grain first just to mitigate any tear out on the sides. So when we go along the long grain, it'll take care of that. But you can kind of see from the profile, I came down to just above the line, pretty much there on that side, just above it over here. I'm gonna do the same on the back side too, but so I've done the long grain now. Now I'm gonna do, or I've done the end grain now. Now I'm gonna do the long grain, and that'll give us our nice raised panel. It's still a little rough, needs to be smoothed out and planed out, but I'm gonna get kind of the rough shape in first, and then I'll come through with maybe a block plane real shallow and kind of smooth it all out, and we'll sand it smooth too. All right, so I've got the panel done. I marked out where I'm gonna cut my hole for the clock face here. And basically I made sure I tried to get all my lines going directly to the corner. So that's the main goal when you're making kind of a raised panel like this. So hopefully you guys, it's not too much of a glare and you can see that. So we started a 3/4 inch board, and you can see down the side here, we've come down to a 1/4 inch lip here. On the back side, I didn't go as far with the chamfer. I kind of went shorter on it. So you could see they're a lot steeper of an incline, and that is to account for that not much space from side to side, so it'll kind of wedge itself in that groove a little bit more. And I made the sides or the ends a little bit longer just so that the groove or the piece of wood buries itself in all the way in the groove. So I've got the clock right now flipped upside down. I can take it and slide our panel now perfectly in the groove. This took about 30 minutes of work of just like manipulating, planing a little bit, sanding a little bit, making sure that it fits perfectly in that groove. So it took a little bit of time, but I've got it in there now. Then we can take our bottom piece, slide that in place, make sure that that's resting, and then that perfectly lines up on the top to these marks there. And then our bottom just lines up and slides in. Sure that we're fully seated. And there you have it. So this is going to be, we're going to say the unfinished version of the clock. So what we still need to do, we're going to have to cut out the hole for our clock reveal. And basically what I did is I found center from side to side and from top to bottom with the panel in place. And found center, put a crosshair on it, measured my clock face where it goes in is a 3.5 inch hole. Took a compass, lined it up on the center, and just, you know, scored around and made my mark where I need to cut. So we're gonna have to bore a hole in here, get the coping saw out, and cut our circle out. And then we're gonna do some molding with a special plane to kind of give this a little bit more dimension and a little bit more refined, more of a refined look. I've got a panel in the vise. I've got a kind of sacrificial board clamped to the back of it just to avoid any tear out. Now I'm just going to bore a hole in here. Got a little bit of tear out from the coping saw on the back side. Not that you'll ever see this, but you know, take pride in your work. So I'm just going around with a beveled down chisel and just kind of putting just a slight chamfer, just kind of breaking the edge, cleaning that up a little bit. So when I was prepping for this project, I started thinking about how I wanted to do the edges of the box, right? Like right now they're just very square 90-degree edges, and that's fine. If that's what you like, then that's fine. You can end it there. I would still sand it and break those edges down. You don't want real sharp edges. That's just going to be real fragile, break off eventually, cause splinters, not look good. And no matter what, it's going to happen, right? So always break your edges with just some slight sandpaper. But I started thinking about like, okay, I want to do some like round over work or something. I did that in previous projects. On that last box we did, the dovetail box, the top and the bottom we kind of rounded over with the hand plane. And I said, okay, I can do that maybe on the top or something. I could do that maybe on the sides, but how do I go about doing that? When I was watching Paul Sellers' project on this, sorry, I got a jet flying over, hang on. When I was watching Paul Sellers do this, because this is where that's inspiration come from, he had taken just like a drywall screw and put it in a piece of wood, and he used that screw, sharpened that screw head down, and used that screw head to kind of make a little bit of a decorative cove round over in the wood. And if you want to do that, you could totally do that. And I was planning to do that, but then I was looking on Amazon and I came across this. So what this is it's kind of like a modern day molding plane. Like back in the day, they used to have wood planes for molding planes that had specific irons in them that were cut to certain designs, and that's how you would get moldings done. And they would use them and plane it out of solid pieces of wood. Nowadays, everything's just kind of pressed in, and it's all just composite stuff. So I found this. It wasn't very expensive. I think it was like $20 or something on Amazon. And it came with for eight. There's one in here. It came with 8 different styles of blade. So essentially, what these are is a little blade like that. And this one here is made for a 45-degree chamfer. So what this does, if you see down the side, it's got a little V in there. This is meant to ride on the top and the side of your piece of work. There's a wheel on the side that advances or retracts the blade, and you just run it down the side, and it will, this essentially, if you had that in, will give you a perfect 45-degree angle. So it gives you a nice clean chamfer rather than having to do it with a hand plane and kind of eyeball it and measure stuff out. It's a little nicer doing it that way. It came with like round over ones, so you can do like a little 1/8" round over like that. Right there is an 1/8" round over bit. This one's like 3/16. It has, what's this? 1/4 inch round over. So it comes with a bunch of different round over ones. It comes with the chamfer one. It comes with kind of like a little V groove. I don't know if you can see that very well in there or not, but like a double V, almost like a W type thing. So, and there's just a bunch of them. Like this one here is, oh, that's the round over one. So, but anyway, there's a bunch of different ones. So I was messing around with it on a bunch of test pieces here, and like here's me testing out that groove plane. But right here, you can see I'm testing out this one. So it kind of comes in, curves around, goes down, has an internal curve, and then radiuses back around again. I don't know if you could see that very well or not, but I like that. So I think what I want to do is run this kind of edge beading here. I don't know what that's called, if that's like an edge bead or what that's like a round over, but I'm going to run this on the left and right side, and then the sides of the stiles of the clock. And then I might do something like a round over on the top and the bottom. So let's get started on that. Okay, so I've got the right side rail here in place. There's our groove. So I'm going to use this bit and cut this side and this side, actually. I think that'll leave a nice design in it. So checking the grain pattern, it looks like the grain's going up that way, so I should be able to push this way without any tear out. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to retract the blade pretty much all the way in. And if you can see here, if I retract this out, not sure if you can see that or not on the blade, but I put a little mark with a Sharpie of how far I want to go out. So essentially I'm going to retract that in, and then I'm going to keep doing strokes through this until I see that black mark come all the way out. So I'm eyeballing down this side. I can see I'm pretty much all the way retracted down. I'm going to pick this side, and basically it just sits in here. And actually I'm going to keep going more back because it's catching. There we go. So this side here runs flat on the top, and this runs flush on your side. And essentially what we're going to do is push through that, and that's going to be where we're doing our cut. And every time we do a cut, I'm going to take this and do one full from top to bottom turn to advance it forward, and I'm just going to keep doing that until we get to our depth. Here we go. So there's our first cut. Not bad. So we're just starting to break those edges. I'm going to come back again, just do a second one just to make sure. Good. Okay. Another advance. Good. Another advance. So I have all the other pieces molded now, the stiles, the side rails. All I have left is the top and bottom, and I'm just going to do like we did with the dovetail box. I'm just going to round over the front and both the sides. I'm going to leave the back flat. So I'm just going to mark it just like I did, do a halfway mark, chamfer at 45, and then round it up. And then this thing will be ready for finish. Got the top piece completely rounded all the way around the front and both the sides. Let's put the thing together and see what our final outcome is going to look like. Alright, so here's our clock all put together. All of our moldings are cut, our holes cut for the clock face. All the top, the bottom, everything's rounded over. Nice corners and everything. It looks really good. I'm pretty happy with it. So now we've just got to glue it up, get everything stabilized, squared up the way we want it, and then we'll finish sand it and get some finish on it. My glue bottle out. I don't need a ton of glue on this, but I kind of have to glue everything at once. So it's going to be kind of a quick process. All right, so I've sanded everything down to 220 grit. Everything's nice and smooth. I tried to get in all these grooves really well. Then I came behind everything, vacuumed all the dust out that got in any of the cracks. Then I came through with a clean rag and just some acetone. Wiped the whole thing down just to get any other dust and contaminants off. Now I'm gonna get a sanding coat of finish on. So for the finish on this one, I'm using this Poly Shades by Minwax. It's got stain and polyurethane all in one in it. And this is like a pecan or pecan color. I was watching a YouTube video and one of the creator was making some cabinets or something and used that on pine, and I really liked how it looked. It gave it a nice rich color, so I wanted to try it on this. So I figured, why not? So I'm going to do a sanding coat. If you don't know what a sanding coat is, it's basically the first coat you put on, let it dry, and that water or that liquid from the finish is going to seep into the grain, and it's going to raise some of the grain a little bit and give it not the smoothest feel when you go to touch it. So you put the first coat on, let it dry, and then you come through and lightly sand everything to bring that back down to smooth. Then your next coat and your subsequent coats after that will have a nice smooth finish to it. So I figured, since I'm building Paul Sellers' kind of clock here, this was his design, he finishes all of his projects with a hake brush, which is this style of brush. So I figure, why not? I will do the same. So let's get a coat on. I've got it raised up just on like 4 little plastic cups just to keep it off the ground. I should be able to get all the way around the piece right now without having to move it or manipulate it too much. So I think, what's the best plan of attack here? I think what I'll do is the middle first, and then kind of work my way around and do the outsides. So let's get to it. So this finish doesn't need any wipe off or anything like our other one. It's literally, because it has poly built into it, it's made to dry slow. So you literally just brush it on and let it dry. So let's go. Okay, so I put on 3 coats of finish. I love the outcome. The color of it is just really cool, and the finish is like glass. It's really nice. It's not super shiny like that plasticky looking wood. It just picks up enough of a shine in certain lights that you could tell it's it's got a nice finish on it. So it looks really good. I went back through with some just beeswax furniture polish and one of those white Scotch-Brite pads. Buffed everything up to a really high, as high of a glass-like finish as I could come up with. And now the only thing left to do is get our clock in. All right, so I bought this clock on Amazon. It's not a super expensive one. It's just kind of an insert. So I'm gonna line it up as straight as possible. And I've got it to the point where it just presses in. Nice. Very, very happy with that. So we built a wall clock. I think this turned out really, really good. I'm really happy with it. Is it perfect? No. If you get up on it, you can see little gaps here and there, you know, maybe some tooling marks where I didn't sand good enough and stuff, but from, you know, 5 feet away, this thing hanging on a wall, it looks great. I'm super happy with it. For my first try at this, ecstatic with it. It actually turned out really, it turned out way better than I thought it would. So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. I'm probably gonna hang it on the wall in my office or something. I like the sound of a ticking clock. It's soothing, you know, but I wanted to try this project because it did a couple different joints that I haven't done before, and it's one step closer to my end goal of wanting to be like a furniture maker. So anyway, with that, I want to thank you for watching this. If you're still here with me, we've gotten a lot of new subscribers to the channel lately. We are almost to 900. It's like scary how close we are to 900, and that's like a little hop to 1,000 from there. So super stoked. I can't thank you, the new people that have come into the channel, welcome. The ones that have been with me from the beginning, you know, I can't thank you guys enough for the continuous support. If you like this type of content, subscribe down below, give me a thumbs up. I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.